In a lawsuit just filed, allegations of rape at West Point and the Naval Academy. Two young women say they risked their careers to come forward and request an investigation. They wanted the men they say raped them to be prosecuted. 1 year later, they're still waiting. Kira Phillips continues our investigation.
When Carly Marquette came forward to say she was raped at West Point, she believed her case would be investigated.
I remember the investigators meeting with my parents, and they promised my parents that if he wasn't going to jail, they could at least get him kicked out of West Point with the evidence they had.
But he's still there.
But he's still.
Annie Kenzior says she, too, believed her allegations of rape would be investigated.
I was like, okay, they're going to get him. Like, good.
But Carly and Annie say their alleged perpetrators were never punished. So now they've filed a lawsuit, naming former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, the former superintendents of West Point and the Naval Academy, Secretary of the Navy Ray Mabus, and Secretary of the Army John McHugh. The lawsuit claims there was limited support from commanders and failure to ensure sexual predators were prosecuted and incarcerated for their crimes. Carly and Annie are not alone. Reports of sexual assault at the academies are up nearly 60%. And of the 65 reports investigated last year, only one resulted in a court-martial.
I ache for those former cadet and midshipmen who have had their lives torn up. It shouldn't be that way.
Congresswoman Jackie Speier has gone to the House floor 19 times.
We need to overhaul this system,
demanding that Congress and the military change the way sexual assaults are prosecuted.
You report everything through your chain of command. So I'm raped. I go to my commander. I say, I've been raped. My commander can say to me, well, you know, I'm not going to pursue this. Or take an aspirin and go to bed. As long as it's going to be in the chain of command, there's always going to be a conflict.
Her bill, the STOP Act, would take investigations away from the chain of command and turn them over to an impartial council of civilian and military experts.
If you're not going to have you're prosecuted, why would you want to come forward? Because you're basically setting yourself up to lose your career in the military.
Speier says for years her calls to action have gone unanswered until Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta took office.
We've got to train commanders to understand that when these complaints are brought, they've got to do their damnedest to make sure that these people are brought to justice. That's the only way we're going to try to prevent this in the future, is to show that people can't get away with it.
How do you get it through these men's heads? If they rape, they will pay the price.
This place operates by command authority, and it has to begin at the top, and the message has to go down to the bottom.
Still, Panetta will not take investigations away from the chain of command, but he is changing the rules, announcing new initiatives just 1 week after our interview.
What I will do is change the way these cases are handled in the military.
Here's what Panetta is doing differently. He created a special victims unit to investigate sexual assaults. Now, instead of slowly making their way up the chain of command, all cases will begin at the level of colonel.
Everybody has to do due diligence. Commanders, like I said, have bosses. If that commander's not doing their job, you relieve their butts of command.
Major General Mary Kay Hertog heads the Sexual Assault Response and Prevention Office.
And you have to look at this every single day, and you have to take what every victim says seriously. I want our victims to come forward.
But the changes in policy come too late for Carly Marquette and Annie Kenzior. Their military careers are over.
That hurts me to hear that, because we betrayed their trust and we didn't take care of them, and we need to do a much better job.
According to the lawsuit, as a result of the Carly became depressed and suicidal, unable to handle the stress of seeing her alleged perpetrator every day. Carly resigned from West Point.
It was like I felt like a blemish.
because they knew you reported the rape.
Annie says she too became suicidal. She was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and, according to her lawsuit, was then forced to leave the academy.
It hurts the message that we're trying to get out there.
Because of privacy issues, Panetta couldn't comment specifically on Carly and Annie's cases, but he does make clear that blaming the victim needs to stop.
Personality disorder, academic separation, I mean,
I think that's part of the syndrome that we're dealing with, which is that, you know, once a decision is made that somehow this prosecution is not going to move forward, then you basically turn on the victim who brought that complaint and try to do everything possible to make sure that that victim doesn't hang around, or really diminish them by somehow accusing them of having psychological problems. That syndrome is what we have to break out of.
And for Carly and Annie, if coming forward helps with that mission, they want to be a part of the battle.
I know with at least one person coming forward, there will be others that want to come forward and say something.
Because then they might get their perpetrators put behind bars, which is where they should be.
West Point and the Naval Academy say they couldn't comment on Carly and Annie's allegations because of privacy issues. Both women have requested copies of their case files to learn more about why the men they say raped them are still in the military. Coming up, from the